All right, this is the most boring session you're going to be in all day. So if you came for some excitement, you're in the wrong place. But it is important. It's important. This is about protecting yourself, protecting your church. It's about policies, about forms, about all the stuff that nobody wants to hear about, but we have to do. So if you're expecting like the Brother Hodge session with the action songs, I'd rather be doing that. I'd rather be doing object lessons, but this is a very important session, but it is not one that any of us are probably going to enjoy. I won't purposely make it boring, but it's just the nature of the content, unfortunately, lends itself to kind of glazed eyeballs, you know, but we do have to do it. I also I wish I wasn't the one doing it, because I'm not good at this stuff. This isn't my sweet spot. Brother Gavin Barrier from our church was so good at this. He was so detail-oriented and organized, and he could find the easiest ways to do everything, and then I would do my best to implement the stuff that he came up with. So probably at the end, you may have questions. I probably will not have answers, but I can at least find out the answer. So let's just get started. Creating safe environments for children and youth ministry. But in today's world, this really is one of the most important, and I am ashamed to say sometimes, even in our own church, and until recently, thanks to Brother Barrier's intervention, one of the most overlooked areas in the apostolic churches. We are behind the ball on a lot of this, and so this is something that we really do need to focus on. And out of all the sessions on the schedule, if I was a pastor or a Sunday school director, this would probably be one of my highest priority picks for someone in my church to attend, because without some of this stuff, you're going to get yourself in some trouble. So let's just get started. Our church should be the safest place in town. If it's not, we got some serious work to do. There's a few hours a week that these kids are with us on Sunday mornings, and sometimes other youth events, or sometimes even at junior camp or wherever we take them. But those facilities have to be the safest place that those kids are at. They can't be the one place that anything should happen, or if it does, we need to have precautions in place to deal with them when they take place. And that is physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things are going to be part of what we're talking about. So why does this matter? Why does safety in children's ministry, in bus ministry, in Sunday school matter? And it's because we're living in a messed up world. If everything was perfect, if we had Sunday school in the Garden of Eden, we wouldn't have to worry about none of this. But we don't. We live in Rialto. You live Yucaipa. And wherever you're at, you all have your own challenges. So some of what I'm going to talk about, I don't really know if it applies only to California. Some of it does apply. It's a federal deal. But some stuff is going to be specific to here. But I would at least check and see how much of it applies to where you're at as well. A lot of this recommendations, they come from our insurance companies who they give us a checklist. These things must be put in place for you to be covered. Church West, Brotherhood Mutuals, where we got a lot of this. But there's also a lot of training events that you can go to that are put on by people that this is their occupation. And you can go many times for free. And you can go and sign up to attend and find out what are the things that a church needs to be aware of. Now, this will kind of get you this is like Safety 101. They're going to take you deep in the weeds, all right? So this will kind of get you the high-level view, and they will get you where you need to go as far as like the specifics. The Bible says in Psalm 127:3 that children are an heritage of the Lord. We have to take that very seriously. Protecting them protects us. It protects our church. The training, the documentation, all the vigilance, this is not optional. Unfortunately, it is critical. So what are some core safety policies that every church has to have in place to, again, this may be California specific, some of this, and if it is, I'm sorry, but that's the only lens I have to look through. So let's go through the first one. Annual trainings for staff and volunteers. You have to have safety trainings at least once a year. There's an annual safety requirement that you have to have, and that can be in person or through video. Either way is, as far as checking the box, either one is fine. As far as communicating what you're trying to communicate, in person is always better. With that said, we do video. So but you do get more accomplished in person. So we don't do it all, like many times we'll do like a once a year in person, and then maybe the odd year will be in video form. So you have to do at least one of those, but this is really important. You can't just have the training, you have to document who attended. So if you have a training event, every single person that shows up has to sign a signature, a wet signature that I was there, or a digital version if it's in video form. I can send it to, we use jotform.com, and I can send that to somebody, and it has the video embedded. They click it, they watch it, they come back, and they sign off, yes, I saw it, yes, I understood it. At that point, as far as the church is concerned, we're done. Whether that person watched it at 10 times speed, I don't know. I'm just taking them at their word. They said they understood it. They said they watched it. At that point, the church is covered. That person may have an issue between them and God, whether or not they actually watched it or not, I don't know. But the church is covered. So all staff must sign an acknowledgement form if it's in person. We usually do like a form, and they sign in and put the date next to it. We then put that on file. And again, that has to be every year. So I think it's 3 years that you have to have that on file. All the staff volunteers must sign that acknowledgement form. New workers must be fully trained and documented before stepping in. So say you have an annual safety training that you do for your whole staff. If someone new signs up, you can't wait until that training happens. By law, they have to do that training before they begin. That's why the video training is so nice. You can just send them the link, they take care of it, and then you can check check the box next to the name on that. If you have an in-person training, you also have the people that just can't make it for whatever reason, or don't make it because they didn't want to come. But at that point, that needs to be a red flag. That person cannot continue in ministry until that box is checked again for the next year. So that's why the video is nice also. You can send that to them and say, until this is complete, I'm sorry, but you cannot be working in ministry. Child supervision, this is the next thing. A lot of this is forms, but some of this is just part of training that we're teaching our staff. A lot of it's common sense. A lot of it is stuff that you already know, but this is actually stuff that they tell you must do. Never, ever leave a child unattended while they're on the church property. They cannot be in a classroom by themselves, in the church ground by themselves, even on the playground by themselves. I know, it happens a lot. They're out playing, they're fine. But unless you're supervising them, they're not supposed to be unattended. And this one should be common sense, but this is really important. Never be alone with a child ever. Ever, ever. We're talking about protecting yourself and protecting the church. Sometimes protecting yourself means don't even put yourself in a position where someone can say something, whether it happened or not. Sometimes there are accusations made, and yes, it's happened, and yes, it's happened in our church. We've had someone that was accused of molesting a child. But that person was never one-on-one with that child, and when it finally came down to it, when the police were called on it, yeah, this is a real deal, they got called in, that child finally admitted that it probably happened in our room full of people, where there was 100 people, and the police were like, wait a second. They realized it was nonsense at that point, because that person never allowed themselves to be one-on-one with that child ever. So we're very, very careful. That means in a car, in a room, in a restroom, never be alone with a child ever. Always have another adult present, not even you and another few kids. Try to always have someone 18 and over with you. If you find yourself accidentally alone with a child by yourself, immediately move to a public, visible area. Never have a single teacher teaching by themselves in the classroom. Now, that's easier said than done for some. I know we get stretched thin, but you're not supposed to do that. Even on a bus, you can't have a single adult with kids that you pick up. So a driver must also have a worker over 18 to qualify for that. So you have to have 2 over 18 people from the church working on a bus. Some discipline guidelines. And again, some stuff is more common sense than anything, but never physically discipline children in your classroom. I know in California, that's a duh, but I was at a church where they literally had a spanking room. This is in these years. This is just a couple years ago. And they had a designated spanking because it was legal in their state. It was fine for a church to spank children. Nowadays, like today, it blew my mind, and it actually is legal. The parent has to sign off and say it's okay, and that's part of their permission slip. It blew my mind, but that's a real thing. So even if we had that permission, we would not be doing that. We are not physically disciplining the kids. That means no spanking, no hitting, no pinching, no slapping. Use verbal redirection. Use timeouts instead. I know, boy, that's scary, a timeout. But what else do you have to do? Rough rule of thumb on a timeout is 1 year per age. If you have a 5-year-old, roughly 5 minutes. If you have a 13-year-old, they might need more time. Timeouts must occur in sight of other adults, never in isolated areas. If a child physically misbehaves, as in punching another kid, throwing something at them, you can guide the child gently. You're not even supposed to restrain them at that point unless they're in danger of hurting themselves or hurting someone else. At that point, you can gently restrain them to stop them from hurting themselves or somebody else. But even then, we're careful. You got to be so careful and have other people around. Don't ever put yourself in that position. Escalated behavior must be immediately reported to both the parent and the ministry director, whether that's bus ministry, Sunday school, whatever position that you find yourself in. Here are some bathroom procedures. Never assist a child in the bathroom. I know, again, some of this is obvious, but some of it, you find yourself in some weird situations sometimes. You have a kid asking for help. What are you supposed to do? Just ignore him? Leave him there all day? What do you do? Never assist a child alone. You knock and verbally assist as much as you can. If entering is absolutely unavoidable, if you have no other choice, you keep the exterior door open. Again, this is all coming from our insurance company as well. So this is not just something that we made up. This is all coming from our insurance company. So keep the external door open and bring another adult in with you. And then you have to deal with yours. We've had stuff where a kid showed up and they pooped all over themselves. You have to deal with it. And so you deal, if they're siblings, thank God. Sometimes there's not. You just have to deal with the situation. So you just go through these steps and be as careful as you possibly can. Any fastening of the garments of children must be done in the presence of another adult. Anytime that you're dealing with situations like this. Transportation safety. Always drive children directly to their destination and back with no unauthorized stops. Now, I say that, but I've also made many unauthorized stops, such as, we promised the kid, hey, we'll stop at 7-Eleven and get everybody Slurpees today if you guys are good. Sometimes it's like do as I say, not as I do thing. We have stopped and got our kids Slurpees. In theory, you're supposed to text the parents, this is what we're doing. You're also supposed to let the people at the church know what you're doing. So everybody's aware in case, the bus isn't where it's supposed to be at any given time. With that said, we still, there are some things that, you do because it's the thing to do and you're careful and you don't, if I stop and get Slurpees, I can't imagine getting in much trouble for that. But that's why I'm probably not the one writing these policies. All right. How am I doing on time? I got 17 minutes. Okay. Never transport a child alone. I already said that, but 2 adults must always be present. No physical contact with the children while transporting. Again, some of this is obvious. Some of this is stuff we already know, but no cell phone use by the driver, whether this is a bus, a van, or a car, unless absolutely necessary. Pull over if needed. Drivers must be properly licensed and covered by your church insurance. Now, your church insurance, this is where it gets interesting. Where does the line fall between, is this me picking up a friend and bringing them to church, or when it's the church saying, hey, go pick up this person, now it's under the umbrella of the church. That's when things can get dicey. So we have all of our people that are going to be picking up, fill out this form that was given to us. This is a personal vehicle use waiver form. If anybody is picking up anybody and bringing them to a church event of any kind, they're supposed to fill this out. Now, we're not talking about bringing somebody to church, like a main service. But if it's like an event like this and I say, hey, Jay, I need you to go pick up this kid on this corner, take somebody with you and go pick them up. You need to fill this out. And what this does is it takes the insurance liability off the church and puts it on Jay, because it's his car and he's driving. I know that's a responsibility that he has to be willing to take, and if he doesn't fill it out, and he doesn't go pick them up. But that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you can find yourself in big trouble because Jay's probably not on the church insurance. And so now we have a big problem. So we have this filled out by anybody that's going to be picking up somebody under church use. Otherwise, that person is accepting responsibility. All right, bus safety. We're going to be covering bus and Sunday school as well. We need to train our workers on how to use crosswalks and how to pick up kids safely. That's part of the training. You need to create a standard pickup and drop-off policy. No one-on-one pickups at front doors. So this is, again, easier said than done. You have a lot of stuff going on a Sunday morning. You only have a limited number of workers. Maybe you get at a stop and you have 10 doors to hit. Do you really have 20 workers to send to 2 to each door? Probably not. According to this, you're supposed to send 2 to every single door. So it's not one person walking one person to the bus. Do we do it sometimes? Probably shouldn't say this on recording, but yeah. But you're not supposed to. So I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to do. Never drop off a child, again, one-on-one. Now, this is very important. Never drop off a child without seeing them go into the front door. A lot of the areas that we go to can be rough, and sometimes, even though there's a parent there when we pick them up, they may not be there when we get back, and we have no idea where they're at, and nor do we know when they're coming back. So sometimes you go to drop them off, and that kid's beating on the front door, and if we had just gotten our car and left, that poor child is locked out of their house by themselves, probably no cell phone, and they're stuck by themselves. So you have to be very, very careful. Sometimes we have to put them back in the bus, take them to the church, and they're there with us until we finally get a hold of mom or dad. That's part of the fun of bus ministry. Don't just stop and honk. Now, this is just kind of a pet peeve. This is not a safety thing, but it's always bothered me if you just pull up in front of somebody's house and just, it's like, get out here. It's nicer to walk to the door and knock on it. It's so good to see you. You ready for Sunday school? And you walk them and make it a personal experience. Again, this is not safety. It's just a good thing to do rather than just pull up in front and honk and expect them to come out. See them to the front door, guardian when dropping off. I already said that. Have incidents reports ready, and we're going to talk about that right now, for any injury, any significant complaints, or any significant behavioral issues. All right, incident reports. Document everything. You need a paper trail for some of this stuff. Injuries, accidents, behavioral problems, even the kid getting sick, vomiting, that sort of thing. You're supposed to write up an incident report. Immediately after the event, behavioral incidents need to be filled out. If a child is acting out beyond a normal area of acting out, there are 1,000 little hiccups during a day. We don't write those up. But there are some that are significant enough to warrant that child being taken out of class. Sometimes you'll have someone that's so disrespectful and talking back to the teacher to the point where you cannot teach. If that child has to be escorted out, we write it up. The idea is that if it happens once, it may be just a bad day. If it happens twice, there's something going on. If it happens 3 or 4 times, but if you don't document it, you don't know. And you think you'll remember. But by the 4th week, you're like, was it him or was it the guy with him? I can't remember. You'll get it confused if you're not careful. So document it. And the way we do it, this is not the only way. There's many ways. But we actually have someone that full-time is our security for children's ministry. They float out there in that middle ground. If there's a behavioral problem in this class, they will take them out to him, and he takes it from there. They come back in and resume Sunday school. Now he'll try to talk them down, figure out what the problem is, and write it up. When they fill it out, again, this is all on jot form. When he fills that out, I get a copy of the email, pastor gets a copy of the email, the bus director gets a copy of the email. So we all know, okay, we have a record of this problem. Many times it's an isolated one-time thing, we never hear about it again. But sometimes it's a reoccurring issue where a pastor says, hey, didn't this happen last week? Didn't this happen the last 3 weeks, and at that point you start taking measures beyond just trying to talk to them or correct them or talking to the parents. Sometimes you just have to say, I'm sorry, this isn't a good fit. You are not allowed to ride our buses any longer, or at least a suspension of some kind. Keep physical and or digital copies for at least 3 years of these incident reports. I love digital. I am so bad at filing stuff. I'm terrible. JotForm files it for you. It has every form that you make has its own little filing system, so you can go and look them all up. You don't have to worry about it. Now, we do print out a copy of that and have it in paper form as well, but you can have, it just makes life so much easier. Now, here's not the fun part, is you're supposed to notify the parents of those incidents in person. So when you drop that child off, you have to talk to the parent about it. Sometimes it's easier said than done. They may not be there. So you just have to at least notify, that we tried to speak to them. Let's talk about physical contact. What is appropriate and what is not appropriate? Appropriate or allowed physical contact is you're going to have those kids that are so happy to see you. They love you, and they're going to come out and want to give you a big hug. I am not going to stiff arm that kid and tell him, don't get me in trouble, kid. You can turn that just fine. Sometimes a high five will catch it and you're good, or even a side hug. You can give them a good side hug, and it's fine. That's totally good. You got to be careful, though, on how you hug kids. Sometimes, you got to be careful of the optics. Pats on the back are great. High fives are great. Sometimes you have to hold a kid's hand for safety. Sometimes you have to, hey, listen. You grab their hand for attention. But you don't just walk around holding hands with a kid. It's a crazy world. You don't mean it in the wrong way, but sometimes it's seen that way. This is, again, what our insurance tells us. This is never appropriate. It's front-facing hugs with children. We understand this, but kissing is not good. Tickling is not good. Extended hugging is not good. Forcing physical affection is not good. And this is just a good way to phrase it. Remember that physical affection is to meet the needs of the child, not the adult. Whatever you need to do to comfort that child within those bounds that I just said is what should be done. It's not for our sake, of course, it's for the sake of the child. Never force touch on a reluctant child. Brother Julian said it so well when you're praying for kids. Some kids, you can't even pray for them. We had a little girl here. It was actually right over here. I remember that moment. Brother Cody Marks was praying for a little girl, and he went to lay hands on her, and she jerked away. And he said, "Oh man, that girl's been hit a lot." He said, don't touch her. Just leave her alone. We'll pray for her. We prayed for her, and that girl actually did really well. But because you don't know what these kids have gone through. Releasing the children after service. Okay, so this is a tough one, and this is something we struggle with. I'd love to say we have it figured out, but we don't. We're doing our best. But a secure campus is the way you're supposed to have it. Our entrance up there is locked. Our entrance over here, we can't really lock it, but we do have people there at check-in. There's supposed to be a one-way only, that only people only people under 18 or adults that have all the appropriate background checks are allowed through that. Other than that, this should be a secure area. Nobody allowed in that hasn't gone through that process. And when you exit Sunday school, they should be checked out just as carefully. This is where it's really hard, and we're not good at this. But this is what you should be doing, is it should be going directly to that parent or guardian. They should be coming to you and collecting their child. We're not there. I'm not going to try to be hypocritical. We're not. It's like, guys, go find your parents. Woo! And they just go, okay? And they all run up. We have our bus team over here. They are very carefully checked out and counted. But on the church side, it's kind of like, just go find your parents. I'm not saying do that. That's what we do. We need to figure out a better system. Unfortunately, it's just our layout. We still haven't come up with a good solution. But you're supposed to hand them off directly to the parent. All right. If you're unsure who they go to, you're supposed to ask a director immediately. Now, we did have a situation where a parent was checking in their child, and it was one of those terrible situations that it was a split marriage, and one of the parents was not allowed to be around the children anymore, but yet was trying to be. And so they said this parent could be here and trying to collect the children, even though they have orders not to be around the kids. They said, please be on guard against this particular person. That's why these things are important. That's why it's supposed to check them out. And when you check them in, you say, who are the authorized guardians to check them out? All of that's supposed to be done. Again, I'm not going to be hypocritical and say we do it. We don't. We should, but we don't. But that's how it should happen. All right. What about internet, social media, and phones communicating with these children? This is a rule of thumb that you should live by, is no private communication with minors ever. Private meaning one-on-one. I should never be texting anybody under 18 anything without having someone else in that loop. If I'm going to be texting Jay, his mom's in on the conversation. I'm going to try not to ever meet and Jay texting. Not because I'm worried about it, not because we're not friends, not because I'm not friends with their parents. I'm just protecting myself. Why would I put myself in a position? So I'm going to text Jay and his mom. I'm going to put us in a three-way loop, and we're going to text that way. And same with all of our bus riders. I don't text them directly. I would rather text the parents, in fact. But if I do have to text a child, and maybe the parent isn't available to be in that loop, I'm going to put another bus worker in that loop. Maybe my other worker on my team, or maybe the bus director, just so they know that we're trying to be careful. That's for any method of communication, whether it's a direct text, whether it's a messaging, whether it's Instagram, DM, whatever it is. You have to be so careful. If you ever, and this we don't do this, but if you ever directly text a minor, you're supposed to have written parental permission. That's by our insurance company. If you ever do a direct communication, it should be with written parental permission. That's why it's just better, just don't do it. Don't do it. If permission is given, keep full records of all those conversations. Again, why put yourself in that position. Prefer family landlines or parental cell phones. Let's see, we got 4 minutes and 30 seconds. What about photography and videography? Apparently, in California, you can get yourself in trouble by posting someone on social media without their giving their consent, at least for children. Now, for adults, it's different. But you're not supposed to be putting a minor on your church Instagram or personal Instagram without written parental permission. So just to cut through the nonsense, assuming you're doing all your permission slips correctly for your buses, buried in our permission slip says, by the way, if you send them, they're probably going to end up on Instagram. It doesn't say it quite that clearly, but it says you're also giving us permission for photographs, because we do a lot of class pictures and we post them. That's our get out of jail free card. You said you could do it. We have your signature. We're good. But if you don't have that, it's something to start putting into place. This is just a bonus thing that our insurance company said you should probably do. Install visible video cameras in all your classrooms. So if anything were to happen, you can always review it. Again, we don't have that necessarily, but it's a good thing to do. Now, this is important. If you are in California, this is really, really important. California passed a law, and if you signed up for junior camp, you know where I'm going right now. California AB 506 law for California churches came into effect in January of 2022. This requires the following: mandated reporter training for every single person over the age of 18. That means you have to go through this whole series of videos and answer questions and pass a quiz to say that you are now, by working in children's ministry, a mandated reporter. That means if anything happens, you by law must report it. If you notice abuse of a child, if you see signs of anything inappropriate with that child, you must turn them in. Or not turn the child in, but you must report it. You must mandate a report. So the question is, has that ever happened? It's happened more times than I'm proud of. Not that I'm proud of it. It happens a lot. I've had to do it myself more times this year than I've ever had to in my life. We don't publish it. We don't talk about it. But we deal with it. You have to do it. Otherwise, you're the one in trouble, not the person that caused the situation. So you have to do it. And sometimes it's really uncomfortable, and it may even cause problems between you and the families that you're picking up. Doesn't happen that often in that particular scenario, but it happens. It happened. So that's the first thing, mandated reporter training. You must do it. It used to be free, but now I think there's an $8 certificate that you can purchase, or you must purchase, and you have to have it on file at the church. That is good for 2 years. So after 2 years, you have to get it done again. The next thing is the live scan the DOJ, the Department of Justice fingerprinting, which does your background checks. What this does is you go into, like our church office, we will hand you a paper. It has our Department of Justice number. It has our church information. You take that to a live scan location. They will scan all of your fingerprints. And from then on, because you have done this, if you have done that scan and then you do anything inappropriate, the church knows about it immediately. If you do a background check, like a paper background check, I know what happened at that moment, but I don't know anything in the future. Live scan is, I know from now on until you die. This is a California thing, and you have to do it. It's not, but this is for kids. This is also what they called, what's the word for it? I can't think of the term, but it's adults, vulnerable adults, that's the word. So that like our recovery homes that we deal with, those are considered vulnerable adults. We have to go through this whole process for anybody working with them as well. So the DOJ fingerprinting the live scan. So maybe you have someone that says, I've already done the live scan through my school or through my work. They have to do it again for your church because those reports are being sent to their work. It's being sent to their school. So if something were to happen, the schools knows about it, but you don't. So that live scan only worked for the person that submitted it under that DOJ number. So some person, time's up? Cool, we've got another 10 minutes at least. I'm kidding. But this is the final thing. We really are done. But you have to have that done. This is super important. If something were to happen, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt if you don't have this done. And this is something that California's having to deal with. I don't know if other states do or not. So we're done here, but create safe environments. Protect your kids, protect yourselves, protect your church, because it'll all be worth it. I do have copies of some applications. I have copies of the personal waiver and our permission slip if you care. I have those up here for you to look at. All right, God bless. Let's go to the other classes.